never walk this road, then you can talk shit. Gambling with my life, but I refuse to go for nonsense. This the life I chose, this all I know, ain't many options. About to tell the truth, I make the rules like I'm Fleece'S Johnson.
Hey, what's up? This is Big Lee with Hustler Spirit. I got a special guest with us today, Dr. Q. How you doing, Dr. Q?
Doing well, Big Lee. Good to see you. Good to meet you.
I appreciate you too, and I'm glad you came to sit down with me today. Dr. Q will be starting her own YouTube channel to give you all the education and the information. She's going to give some of it to us today. Go ahead and tell us where you from and how you got here today, Doc.
How I got to where I am in terms of a doctor, or where my origins are, my history as a little kid, or what you want to know.
Wherever you want to start. The history as a little kid growing up, it'll be fine.
All right then, sir. Well, lots of people have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, the Tuskegee Airmen, and I'm a child of Alabama, Tuskegee, Alabama, born in Alabama, spent my first 12 years there in Alabama. In terms of looking at what kind of a child I was always a child that did not feel cared for. I was the kind of child that I had a mother who I came to learn later on in life that my mother had been abused. She was horribly depressed, but she loved men. She had 3 men that were always in her life, but her 3 children are by 2 of those men, and all of those men were married. My father was a married man. However, my mother, despite the relationships that she had with these men, that didn't make her happy. What made my mother happy was alcohol and voodoo. Sometimes people call it hoodoo. But my mother liked to drink, and when she liked to drink, she liked to go to what people call root workers. And with us being in Bama, this was all back up in the hills, way in those little shacks back up in there. And all of those root workers like to drink. And they like to party. And my mother was the kind of woman where she did not do babysitters. One of the reasons she didn't do babysitters is because she was known all around Tuskegee. You know, she liked to drink and she liked to party. So she would take her children with her wherever she went most of the time. Now, I did have great aunts, but my great aunts got tired of my mother. Her shenanigans, doing what she do, messing around with these men, having babies with these married men, taking us all over to these joints and doing this and doing that. I'm saying all of that to say this. For me, when those things were occurring, it was very frightening to me. It was very traumatic for me. My mother did not know that some of the men in these bootleg joints were groping me when I'm 5 and 6 years old, rubbing me in places where their hands didn't belong when I'm 5 and 6 years old. Because if you know the South, way back in those woods, most of those places were little shacks, basically shacks. And there may have been a sheet that divided the room from where the folks slept on what they call pallets. You ever heard of a pallet?
I have not.
You never heard of a pallet?
No.
Well, it's just like a blanket on the floor, okay? But sometimes if women were quilting, they would fill it with cotton.
Okay,
they fill it with rags.
I've heard of pallet. I'm sorry, because they still use that term. I'm thinking back in those days if it was something different. I'm sorry, I know what you mean. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when we would be tired, my brother and I, my sister hadn't come along yet, but when we would be tired, too tired to sit up or too tired to do whatever was needed to do, to be alert, to be ready when my mother was ready to go, which in my mind, she was never ready early enough to go. I mean, she was just always on the go, doing something. The fearless woman will walk anywhere. And she never learned how to drive. Wilma Johnson was a mess. But we've got this funky sheet pulled halfway between this half of the shack and that half of the shack. And over here in this half of the shack, you got the kids. Most of them are asleep, but I'm not asleep. because I'm wondering what my mother is doing and when are we going to be leaving here. On warm days in the summertime, these folks would go and they would sit on the porch, okay? And on the porch, you would have, maybe you would hear radio, maybe not. But there was a lot of gossip going on in those days on the porch. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, it seems like there was always some little moldy ass, funky, dusty man able to sneak away and do things to me that shouldn't have been done to a little girl. Mm-hmm. And after those things had occurred, I would be threatened. I'm a little girl. I already have a situation building in my mind about why isn't it that this lady called Mama, why doesn't she show me love? Where's my daddy? Why am I not protected? Why do I have to be here in this place all afraid that somebody's going to kill me and hurt me and do bad things to me? Anyway, as time went on, we had a situation where the former children's services in Alabama had gotten word that my mother was a rambler. She was all over the place, and she took her children with her to all of these places of ill repute where children shouldn't go. Mm-hmm. We barely went to school in Tuskegee. So the children's services of that day said, we are going to take your kids, Wilma. But I had a wonderful grandmother, and she lived in Cleveland. But before we got to Cleveland, my mother's sister would drive from Brooklyn, New York in the summertime to visit my grandpa and the aunts, his sisters. And one summer, let me see, I was in Brooklyn 3 years, 6 years, so that must be, I was born in 54, so that must have been 1960 when when they took me out of the South to Brooklyn, New York. Because my mother's sisters, they were just about a year and a half apart. And this sister was trying to help my mother, who was the sister. And so my mother thought by sending me to New York with her sister, her dear sister, that I would be clothed properly because I was a ragged, in Alabama, I was a little ragged girl with nappy hair, hungry, barefoot, and smelly. Because I did not have the resources. And if my mother did have the resources to provide for me, the men she was dealing with took her money and abused her, okay? And I have come to the conclusion now that the reason why my mother was like she was because she had untreated mental illness. Untreated mental illness. Now I'm gonna stop here for a minute because I need to break off into Dr. Amos Wilson.
Okay.
And this is Dr. Amos Wilson's book. It's called The Psychological Development of the Black Child. This is Dr. Amos Wilson's book. It's called Awakening the Genius in Black Children. Now, in The Psychological Development of the Black Child, Dr. Wilson says that black children, and he has this researched, saying that black children, when they are born, they are far ahead of any other baby. That black baby lifts his head sooner. That baby sits up sooner. That baby recognizes his parents sooner. That baby will orientate his head towards a voice as soon as it's born.
Wow.
Most children don't do that until they're months old. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I was a type of child that had a lot of sense, but it was not manifested. Because as a child in Tuskegee, Alabama, we were taught, I'm going to tell you something one time, and you better get it. Because if you didn't get it at one time, you was going to feel the power, if you understand what I mean. Because I had, what's the South? I'm in the segregated South. What's the South? The South was the home of slavery. The whole nation was at one time. But the South now in the 40s and the 50s, that's where all the sharecropping is. So the situation with my mother and the way we were treated was similar to how my grandparents were treated. My grandparents were treated like dogs in the South. And all my mother knew was you spare the rod and you spoil the child. Mm-hmm. This book called The Psychological Development of the Black Child by Amos N. Wilson, simply because we as a traumatized culture and we as a traumatized people often overlook the gifts of our children. Our children are extremely creative. They have to be, because there's so much going on around them that demands creativity. One instance is, I remember as a little girl down in Bama, my mother had a job, but she drank up her money and the men took her money. And so I didn't have dolls. So what I would do is I would get a Dr. Pepper bottle, because Dr. Pepper was the soda then, was the pop I used to drink. I would get a Dr. Pepper bottle. I would go and I would pick some long grass, okay, and I would fold it in half and I would turn it around and twist it and twist it and twist it and twist it until a big knot was in the bottle and the grass was hanging all over the sides of the bottle. And I would cradle that bottle in my arm, and that was my doll, okay? And slingshots, you make your own slingshots. And I had an aunt. You made slingshots too? Yeah. I made slingshots and I could knock robins out of trees. And I had a great auntie who, if I got those robins to her, she would clean them and she would cook them for me. And if you haven't eaten until you've eaten fried robin. I'm not kidding. Because see, when you're hungry and you make do. And I remember in Bama, because my mother was gone, she was gone so much. And we kept ourselves, my brother and I. My sister didn't come along until I was 7 years old. And by that, oh God, I should tell you that, but I'll wait. But the developmental psychology of the black child. Now, a lot of people ask me, how is it, thank you, awakening the natural genius in black children? This book talks about how the school shuts down black children. And as a result of this intentional, systemic destruction of the mind of the black child, they get on to what's called prison pipeline. Prison pipeline is black children who are intentionally placed in special education where they have no business being, and as a result, they don't learn the skills that they need to succeed in the culture. Skills of reading, skills of writing, skills of counting, skills of thinking. They don't know that. And if they don't know that, what are they going to do? They're going to act out.
Right.
Now, I'll talk about my education later, but right now I want you as an audience to relate to my trauma of not feeling loved, of not feeling cared for, of being neglected, of physical abuse, of paranoia, of isolation, of negligence. All of those feelings that I couldn't deal with as a child, I stuffed those feelings. Because I didn't have anyone, it seemed to me in my life, who was concerned about, well, what's going on with Teresa? Why does Teresa seem to be by herself all the time? Why does Teresa isolate? Can you turn that off for me? Thank you. Why does Teresa isolate? Why doesn't Teresa talk to people? Why doesn't Teresa play with kids like the other kids are playing together? Why does she always like to be by herself? Okay? Number one, I was afraid. And number two is the kids made fun of me because I was nasty, I was stinky, I was dirty, I didn't have the proper clothes to wear. And when I say the kids made fun of me, I'm talking about my own cousins. I'm talking about the neighborhood kids. And children, you know, they don't care. They say what's on their mind and keep it moving. And if you can't deal with it, too bad. They keep it moving. But me, I stuffed that kind of stuff. I stuffed those feelings and than that pain. And what I saw as a little child, in terms of my mother, is this. Whenever she had alcohol and was drunk, she would smile. I never saw her smile unless she had alcohol and she was drunk and she had one of those men she used to run around with. So the subconscious mind is saying to me, alcohol will make you smile. And so I became the kind of child that I would watch adults. I'm still in the South. I would watch adults, and if the adults would be out and about on porches and they would leave some white lightning in the jar or something else in the jar, and I could get to it before they caught me, I had it. And it made me feel so much better.
Did you smile?
I smiled. I would jump off of porches. I would climb trees. I used to climb a tree like a little monkey. Because in the South, you have all of this lush and greenery. And we lived near the swamp, the Tuskegee Lake. At that time, it was not modernized. It was just a run-over lake, and all kind of wildlife was there. However, I'm saying that to say this. The instances of me becoming what would eventually be a hardcore addict and a hardcore drunk started way back down in childhood. Started because these feelings that I was dealing with that I couldn't tell anybody about were hurting me so badly. Started because when I would imbibe and drink alcohol as a teenager and as an adult, I felt better. I didn't understand the disease of addiction. I only understood I felt better because under the influence, I blossomed. I could talk to people. I could dance. I could talk trash.
Would it make you not care?
It was more than not caring. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel that I was boss lady. Okay? It made me feel that I had some kind of control over my little world. And I didn't have any control at all. But it gave me a sense of, you belong here. It's okay for you to breathe. It's okay for you to be a friend. It's okay for you to dance. Now, I'm in teenage years now, okay? I'm in my teenage years. But I talked about briefly the situation of my New York aunt. Mm-hmm. And in the Brooklyn, New York, the molestations that started in Alabama intensified tenfold in New York.
Right.
Because I had the uncle and my first cousin tag teaming me. It was ridiculous.
Also, it wasn't the fact you was in a faster city. It was your own family that was doing this in New York.
Yeah. Yeah. And close friends of the family in Tuskegee, along with family in Tuskegee. You see, we talked about briefly, you talked about a lady who had cleaned herself up, who used to be a crack addict and a whore. You know what causes women to become whores? What causes women to become whores is abuse. And 9 times out of 10 is sexual abuse. And they cannot go to a trusted adult. Most of them can't go to a trusted adult and say, this is happening to me and it hurts. Can you make it stop? Can you make it stop? And they end up getting in situations like this. Where's my other iceberg book? Iceberg Slim. That it? Oh, that's Bass Reeves. Well, anyway, Iceberg Slim, My Life as a Pimp. Mm-hmm. He was what they call a gorilla pimp. And Iceberg Slim was good at selecting these kind of women. He was so good at selecting these kind of women, he could look at a woman, talk to her maybe 1 minute, and he could tell what kind of abuse she had endured. That's just how involved he was with the psychic mind of the female. And he knew how much money he could get if he could turn her into what he needed her to be to get him money and to supply his habit, because he had a bad drug habit himself for years. But he was terribly, terribly abusive to women. And see, I had seen this abuse as a little child. So when my mother, oh, that's another story altogether. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but
that's okay.
Yeah. Take your time.
When you got to Brooklyn and it started with your uncles and friends, was it friends too in Brooklyn? Cousins.
Uncle and cousin.
How long did that go on? And did anybody ever step in? Did you ever get any help?
Big Lee, these people were threatening to kill me if I told my aunt. If I told my mother my life was threatened, if I told, they were saying that they were going to kill my mother. I'm a little child. Even though my mother is who she is in terms of caring for her children, which she really was unable to do because she's crazy. And I didn't realize she was crazy until I became an adult myself and went crazy behind booze and dope myself and didn't take care of my kid. Okay? So no, I had to hold that stuff in. I could not tell. It went on for years, 2.5 years. I left Brooklyn at age 9 years old.
And your brother didn't follow you to Brooklyn?
No. And that's another issue I had. See, there's 2 years difference in my brother's age and my age. I never had the protection of a man.
So he's younger?
My brother. He's my younger brother, 2 years younger. But there are many women who have had brothers, younger brothers. Come and see about them. Come and see how they're doing. Okay? But I was out there on no man's island.
Was he facing trauma too?
Yes.
So he wasn't in his right mind to even think about, he was fighting demons, so he was thinking about himself. So he didn't even have time to think about you. We were a sad lot of kids, like a lot of children. We were just a sad lot of children. We were children who were just not cared for. Now, let me tell you one thing about school. I learned to read in Tuskegee, Alabama school called Booker T. Washington. I had 2 black teachers. One was Mrs. Martin, one was Mrs. Moore. Now, back in the day, when your teacher told you to do something, you jumped and you did it, because they could beat the hell out of you just like your parents could, your mother could, or your daddy could, okay? And I remember this pot-bellied stove in my classroom, because I'm in there. I don't have shoes on in the summertime. I had flip-flops on sometimes, but in the summertime, I'm going to school with no shoes. When I went to school, you see, my mother was MIA, missing in action a lot of times. So a lot of times I didn't even go to school until we came to my grandmother's house in Cleveland, Ohio. That's a whole nother ball game. Reading. That's why I have all of these books here. These are treasures. My life started with reading. Reading. Ms. Martin taught me my ABCs and my numbers, how to put words together. And they taught reading with what they call phonetics. Okay? Spell cat. K-a-t. K-a-t. That's the sound of cat. C is k. A is a. T is t. Put it together. Ka-at. Ka-at. Cat! Today they teach whole language. Okay, there's a big difference in whole language. You write the word cat on the board and they ask you, what's this word? Well, how the hell do I know? Okay? You tell me what the word is.
Dog. What's this word? D-O-G. Well, what sound? They're not telling the child the sound of D is D. The sound of O is O. The sound of G is G. Put it together. The Og. The Og. The Og. Dog. That way the child learns. Okay? But teachers right now are so sorry. And the reason why they're sorry, because I used to be a teacher by the grace of God. When I got cleaned up, I became a very good teacher. But teachers don't want parents in these schools seeing how they messing up their children. And a school could not exist without the parent tentacle being up in there.
You said you became a teacher after you got cleaned up.
Well, I was a drunk teacher before I got cleaned up. I became a good teacher after I got cleaned up.
From alcohol?
From alcohol and any other drug I could put inside my body. Because, see, I had a baby. I got pregnant as a teenager. My mother killed herself. That will have to be another interview. But my mother and my grandmother died within 7 days of each other. And I went to foster care. That has to be another interview either, also because it's so long. However, thank you so much. Where was I at?
You was talking about you was a drunk teacher.
Yeah, because you know you tell that short-term memory, drugs and booze will mess up your short-term memory. But when I lived in the housing project with this little baby of mine, who I was neglecting, who I was beating the hell out of if she got in my way.
Where's her father?
He was in Dayton, Ohio also. But my alcoholism was so out of control that when he came around me, the friction was so, he wasn't a woman beater, he wasn't that, but the friction was so bad that he felt it's best I don't go around Teresa because we will hurt each other. Okay, so to protect himself from himself, he would not come around me. And as a result, I mistreated my daughter more because I wanted him to be there for her. But me, I'm drunk all the time. I lived in the largest housing project in Dayton, Ohio called Parkside Homes. Okay? And I had this little girl. And I knew that a welfare check wasn't going to cut it. Hell, I'm drinking up the welfare check. So at that time, if you went to college, you would get a check. You would get an extra check, a financial aid check. And the welfare, you could still keep your welfare check, okay? So I started going to a community college called Sinclair Community College. Graduated. Then I went to an HBCU, Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. And Booker T. Washington's granddaughter, after I graduated with my bachelor's in education, she hired me to be an admissions counselor. But she was what they call in the 12-step rooms an enabler because I was a drunk. And I would stay up all night long and drink and drug. And then I would go into my office drunk. And she would be so ashamed and so embarrassed that she would just lock me up in my office and say, Teresa, you stay here. But I took advantage of that woman. See, because drunks and dope fiends, if we got enablers, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, I'm taking advantage of you because all I want is your money.
Right.
And all I want to do is go out and get more. Okay. And so after I got that degree in health and physical education, I was a phys ed teacher for a while, but with me being drunk, I really couldn't teach phys ed. You know, I could sit on the floor and throw out a ball and throw out some hula hoops and throw out some jump ropes and hope the kids don't bother me because I'm coming off of a hangover. You got a lot of teachers who hooked on drugs, baby.
Right.
A whole bunch of them. And I could write another book on that. But let's fast forward into what happened that got me to straighten up and fly right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Bear in mind, you had the bad crack epidemic hit Ohio, hit most of the country in 84, 85, 86. Because the government was just dumping all this crack into the black neighborhoods, you know, kill them niggas. Don't nobody care about them anyway, you know, just dumping it in there. And me, I'm lost and looking, and I'm trying to get as much of it in me as I possibly could. Because one thing when it came to me is that my favorite drug is alcohol. It always has been alcohol. The reason why I took other drugs was to cut the booze. Because the booze took me so out of control, I couldn't walk. I love staggering. But I hated falling and hurting myself.
So the other drugs would stop you from drinking so much, or it weakened it?
It weakened it, which I didn't like, which meant that I got to drink some more, and I'm going back into slobbering, pissing on myself, throwing up, going to jail, getting in trouble, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so it's just a vicious cycle. Get drunk, get the crack, slow it down, get the pills, slow it down, take the syrup, slow it down. Oh, it's too slow. I don't feel out of control. I don't feel what I like to feel under the influence. Oh, God, I need a drink. Okay, that's when I started to hunt men. But I didn't just hunt like an animal. Okay, because it takes money to get high.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
The kind of stuff that I needed.
I just never heard a woman say hunt. It just it caught me off guard.
No, baby. I hunted men like an animal. Like you have a cat chasing a mouse, and that mouse might go into a hole, and you just wait. It's coming out soon, and then I'm gonna get it. But I had a girlfriend who was a drunk like I am. Or like I was. And what she told me, she said, Teresa, let's go to the golf course. Now, I asked her, the golf course? Why the golf course? And she said, because men with money are at the golf course. And it's true. So I go to the golf course and I meet, you know, God was always looking out for me. Y'all hear that? God was always looking out for Dr. Q. Amen. Even when I didn't know it. God was always looking out for me.
Amen to that.
And I met a very well-to-do man. And this man treated me super swell. He treated my daughter super swell. But he didn't know what he was in for. Because I lived for 20 plus years in the hellhole of addiction. I lived to drink and drug. Everything came after I got high. I drank and drug before I fed my daughter, before I put clothes on her body, before I took her to school. I never, rarely ever, just like my mother, rarely ever told that girl, come here, baby. Let mama hug you. Come here, baby. I love you. Come here, baby. Let me hold your hand. Come here, baby. Sit on my lap. Nah, it was always, I'm getting ready to take you to Aunt Lily. Because God had also put in my life a Christian woman to take care of that little girl. Amen. Because I was a hopeless drunk and dope fiend. I have to tell you all the truth, okay? Because there's nothing pretty about mistreating and abusing children.
Right.
Nothing. And I'm saying this because I want to help someone. There is hope and there is help if people want it. But let me go to October 31st, October 13th, 1991. Back in the day, the golfer had bought me a brand new Cadillac. Well, 2 years, I call it brand new. It was a new Cadillac, beautiful. Remember that big long DeVille?
Yeah.
Long as this place here, that big long DeVille. Yeah. He had bought me a coupe DeVille, 2-seater, sunshine yellow, and you couldn't tell me nothing. However, we had dope boys in the housing project where I lived.
So he brought you the car and you still lived in the projects?
Yeah. I'm living like a queen in the projects because I got this guy. And this guy loved me.
Now, is he married or something?
You know he married.
Okay.
I mean,
I just wanted to make sure everybody else knew.
The reason why I got a married man was because I could decide on his time. Okay? I could decide his time. If I had messed with a guy who was single, you know, he might be coming over my house, knocking on the door, and I might be entertaining somebody else. And then that would be a whole bunch of bullshit. Do you feel me?
Yeah. So you got this man that has all this money, and it still didn't pull you away from the drugs and alcohol.
He was a heavy drinker. He was not alcoholic. He was a heavy drinker, and he was almost 30 years older than me. And he wanted arm candy to go around his friends and show me off and all of this kind of stuff. And I was obligatory to that because, one, in the back of my mind, I always thought I was going to be a movie star. Really. I thought that I would come a time in the housing project, I will be going across the street to the store to get some liquor, and a limousine would pass me, stop, and say, come here. I'm going to make you a star. I was so delusional. I was totally delusional. But when a person is locked in the hellhole of addiction, delusion is just part of the process.
Right.
Faulty thinking is just part of the process. Acting a fool is just part of the process. Getting in people's way is just part of the process. For me, in terms of me, Teresa, Q, for me, what booze did, along with turning me into a pissy, nasty, stinky drunk, it turned me into a paranoid woman. And that paranoia manifested itself with me carrying all kind of weapons. Now, I couldn't do nothing. I'm drunk. You know, you could have blew me and said, and I would have fell all over myself, and the gun probably shot me. Okay, but I'm paranoid, and there's a part of me saying, somebody gonna get you. Somebody gonna hurt you. You need this gun. You need this Bowie knife. You need this. You need this. You need that. Okay? And on October the 13th, 1991, that beautiful coupe had been rented to the Dope Boys. Because the Dope Boys said, I'll give you a, it's been so long. It's been so long. It was a,
8 balls.
Ah, there you go. There you go. A big piece of that. Okay. If you let me have this car, and he said a few hours. Okay. A few hours. All right. So.
It's never a few hours.
It's never a few hours. It's never a few hours. And he too said he was going to put some gas.
But to get you back in your good graces, all you got to do is give you a no.
Well, I only had one that night, thank God. 2 of them might have killed me. However, now, so this guy has my car. I was the type of person, I had what they call blackouts all the time. So after he gets this car, I'm walking down one of the main drags in Dayton, Ohio called Germantown. Germantown, the Dope Boys hang out there. And see, I was known for my figure. I was real, I mean, I'm 5'10", I'm young, I'm tight, you know, and I like to wear hot pants because I got beautiful legs. And so I have the car's gone. I'm in the wrong place at the right time. The Dope Boys on the corner. They see me coming towards them. They see the hot pants. They see the legs. And I hear one of them say, there she is. At that minute, God is so good. This guy pulls up and says, Teresa, get in the car. I knew him. I knew him from the 12-step rooms because I had tried the 12-step rooms 5 years earlier. They were boring. I wasn't having any fun. I didn't make friends well. I didn't play with people well. I had my own little sandbox and I kept to myself, and so they left me alone. And so I got in the car.
What made you get in the car?
I had to get in the car.
He's right there. You right down the street from...
The Dope Boys.
Yeah.
You see, if I had not got in that car, I might not be alive right now. I had to get in that car.
What made you get in there?
He said, Teresa, get in the car. I got in the car.
And that was enough.
That was God getting me in that car. Because if I had gone left and not got in that car, I might not be here right now. But this guy had been in the rooms, real nice guy, and it had helped him. I had seen him get better because prior to him being in the rooms, I used to be in bootleg joints with him. Okay? So I know this dude. Because of the rooms, he had bought him a little old raggedy Cadillac. Okay? And I had a new Cadillac, but I don't even know where it is. Because I'm geeking, you know? And I got in that car. And he took me to that housing project, Parkside Homes. And I went into a blackout. I just remember getting out that car and going in my apartment. I don't remember anything else except that morning when I came to, my daughter was gone because I had left her by herself. I used to leave her by herself all the time. I had left her alone. And was that the one? So much stuff was going on with me. Yep, that was it. That was it. She was gone. And she had gone to, where had the girl gone? I'm going back so far.
That's okay.
And the memory and the blackouts makes a difference. So y'all who listening out there who think blackouts are cute, they're not cute. That's your brain saying, if I don't shut down, she gonna kill me. That's the brain's way of protecting itself because it's got too much booze and too many drugs in it.
So was that the turnaround?
I haven't had a drink or a drug, by God's grace, since October 13th, 1991.
So that guy really did save your life.
Yes, he did.
Good.
Yes, he did. And so here we go into coming out of the hellhole, coming out of the hellhole, coming out of the hellhole. My hellhole was very, very protective. I did not want to leave the bootleg joints. I did not want to leave the dope houses. I did not want to leave the bars. I did not want to leave the alleys and all of those places that were dangerous and deadly that I used to frequent. I didn't want to leave those. Something else I didn't want to do. I did not want to die like that. I had a girlfriend who had been shot to death by her old man about a year earlier because he caught her with another dude and shot her. I didn't want to die like that. The old man who had bought me the Cadillac, who was so good and so wonderful and so kind to me, told me that he was going to have to leave because I'm taking him to dangerous places. He's trying to keep up with me. He's trying to protect me. And he's finding himself in all these dope houses and all these bars and all these bootleg joints and all of these other places. This is an executive, okay? This is a man who is over human resources at General Motors.
So he left you with the car. When he said, I'm done, he left the car with you, and that's when you let the guy.
The car was in my name.
Oh, okay.
The car was in my name. He was paying for it, but the car was in my name. That was my car. Okay. But he didn't tell me the same night, I'm done with you.
Okay.
He told me over time because that on the 14th of October, when my daughter was picked up by relatives in Cleveland, Ohio, I had to go find the car. And it was hard for me to find the car because I was in a blackout when I let the car go. It just so happened that I went to the pawn shop and I pawned a pistol. I got the money for the pistol and I'm leaving the pawn shop. And a girl who was on, where was she at? She was somewhere. But anyway, the night before, she knew, her name was Gina. She knew where the car was. So I'm happy that I pawned the pistol first and got the money before I took the pistol up on
where she said the car was.
Where she said the car was, and started talking real crazy, because I would talk real crazy. Oh God, I would talk real crazy. You see, I would throw my weight around. I was about 40 pounds bigger than I am right now. I'm 5'10", and people would come up on me and they take a look and they say, nah, not her. You know, find somebody else. Because under the influence of the drugs and the alcohol, I was a maniac, maniacal person, a scary person. Anyhow.
Now, at this point, have you talked to your brother, seen your brother?
My brother stayed in and out of penitentiary. After my mother died, my brother, that's another ugly situation. We were in Cleveland, Ohio, and there were like aunts and uncles. There were like 11, maybe 9 aunts. 9 aunts in Cleveland, and I've got these 3 uncles. There were 12. And none of them reached out to take my brother in. So my brother was on the streets, just lost and looking, just running around, lost and looking. And he used to steal all the time. And he was not a good thief. He always got caught. But because he was a poor boy, a poor black boy, they would give him double, triple time. You know, double, triple time. He used to go in a store called May Company, downtown, break-in May Company. And he would get, you know, some junk and go sell it and leave fingerprints all over the place, and they track his behind down, and next thing you know, he doing 5. Next thing you know, he doing this and doing that. And I would visit him in jail, and I would visit him in prison. He went to jail here in Kentucky for raping, for rape, allegedly. But he's been out now, he did about 30 years combined, because he's 68. He may have done more than that, because he was in juvenile a lot too. But I always wanted to be somebody, what they call somebody. In my mind, somebody is somebody who has a nice car, somebody who has nice clothes, somebody who can spend money on me, somebody who can dress me up like a little doll baby. You know, I always wanted to be more than what I was. You know, I was a good actress. I could act my way. I could win an Academy Award, okay? Because I was always pretending that I was somebody other than who I was. Because I hated being poor. I hated living in that housing project. I hated those stinking, nasty roaches. Okay, one of my boyfriends came over to see me one night, and a darn roach lodged itself in his ear, and he ended up in the emergency room getting a roach cleaned out of his ear. And I laughed my ass off, because that shit was funny as hell. Because he was talking about, Teresa, I need to go. I need to go. I feel this thing fluttering in my ear. And so anyway, that's just, I'm saying I had emotional trauma that was undealt. All of the trauma, it wasn't dealt with. It was like nobody gave a damn about me. Except when I was under the influence of drugs, I could pretend to care for myself.
Right.
I really didn't care about myself. But under the influence of alcohol and drugs, I could pretend I was somebody else. But I was the type that I could not control it. You know, there are some people who can drink and drink and drink and drink and drink, and they never stagger. They never cuss anybody out. They don't start fights. They don't do any of that stuff. They're just cold people.
Right.
Not me. I'm pissing on myself. I might throw a brick to your car if you don't come and go whenever I want to go. I might kick a door in. Any kind of, it's just things that I would do that was so deadly and dangerous. Nobody shot me or killed me or stabbed me, because the hand of God is on me. It has to be.
Right.
And I made a vow to myself and the God of my understanding that I was going to help as many children as I could, as many as I could, that had that pain on their heart and soul, like I had it on me.
So is that?
And that's what I do today.
Right. Is that what made you start Because you got, what, 4 degrees?
I have all 4 degrees, including the doctorate, yes.
What degrees are those? What degrees do you have?
I have an associate in health and physical education. I have a bachelor degree in education. I have a master's degree in educational administration with a principal and supervisor's license. I have a doctorate in public policy. As a matter of fact, I want to show you some stuff.
Okay.
Because at one time, our people were in school for these graduate degrees. But the amount of black folks who are attending school now for graduate degrees are at one of the lowest levels ever. Ever.
Do you think it's because we have a lot more entrepreneurs now?
No, it is not because we have a lot more entrepreneurs now. It's because we have a bigger criminal justice system.
Okay.
We have more loopholes. We have more tracks that a person can get lost in. Because once a person, and Fleece, you tell me if I'm wrong, once you start that route in the criminal justice system, it's hard to get off of that. They start giving you, it's hard to get off of probation. You go to, if you get out and they put you on probation and they send you to a halfway house and you make one false move in a halfway house, they can send you back. You got to report to parole officers. You got to drop. You got to do, it's like they want me locked up. They want me locked up.
Before you go through your fabric, sir, you wanted to ask a question, Fleece?
Yes. I'm curious to know when you spoke about your daughter, you said you came, she was gone. Where is she now?
Okay.
And what is your relationship like now?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that question.
You don't have to answer.
No. No, we're here to help people. You know, we're here to help people. And tears are healing. They're not nothing to be ashamed of. And I had a beautiful little girl. Beautiful little girl. But when children are in trauma and the parents are in trauma at the same time, it's hard on both. And I was incapable of taking care of her. And so as I thank you. And so as I said, I lost custody. Custody went to her dad. He couldn't do anything with her. So she came back home for a minute over to the projects where I was. And me, I was a very cruel woman. I believed in doing what my mother did to me. You spare the rod, you spoil the child. And I would beat my daughter furiously for the least little infraction. And when this would happen, our relationship is not good.
Even today?
No.
And why not?
It's not good. Number one is because she still has a lot of anger. She still has a lot of fear. She's 50. I'm 70, Fleece.
You are?
Yes, I'm 70. By the grace of God, I'm 70.
Hey, you around 40.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. Thank you very much. Most drunks and dope fiends don't make it to 70 if they're in active addiction. If they are in active addiction.
So, do you try to reach out to her?
Yes.
And she try to punish you when you do?
Well, really, she punishes herself.
That's right.
Because can't nobody punish me but me. You know, I don't play that.
I mean, that's what she called herself doing.
Yeah, that's what she called herself doing. But we will talk on occasion. Now, my daughter just came out of living in a car because she's homeless right now. All right. But the blessing with that is, since I don't do crack cocaine, I don't do syrup, I don't do pills. I don't do fentanyl. I do not drink. I was able to pay for her to get into lodging. I'm paying for her to have a place to stay. Okay. But there is a long way that we have to go to get to love and care. Because we've got to have that Jesus meeting.
Right.
And get all this pain talked about. Get all of what we need to tell each other. Get it out.
Is she drinking and doing drugs?
No, she does not.
Ooh.
I'm surprised she does not. That's all she knows. But let me stand up.
Yes.
This is, can you all see this? This is what's called a hood. This is a doctoral hood. And you know it because of the velvet and the way that it's made. These are the colors of the college, the university, Union Institute and University of Cincinnati, Ohio, right next door almost, okay? And this is my cap. And the symbolism of this is just a bunch of hooey, okay? Because even though I have this PhD, if you tell the truth to people, they will shut you down. Mm-hmm. People don't like the truth. And I am a critic of these schools because these schools are not doing what they need to do in order to make our children successful so they will stay out of these doggone jails and penitentiaries and gangs. Okay? Now, I was a principal at one time in Columbus, Ohio, but they did not like my rhetoric. They did not like the way I taught. And as a result, they sent me back to the classroom. That was all right. I'm effective anywhere I go because you know what?
You tell the truth.
Not only do I tell the truth, but a power greater than myself has my back. Mm-hmm. So all I have to do, if I stay clean and sober, everything that's supposed to happen to me that's good and wonderful is going to happen to me. That is why, oh God, I got to mention the Reagan administration. This is Nancy Reagan. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I mention the Reagan administration is because it was so corrupt. Most people do not understand the significance, most black people do not understand the significance of what they call Reaganomics. But the politics of Reaganomics are still in effect today. I remember when I was in Parkside Homes in the 80s, rushing to the 18-wheeler to get that government cheese. That was some good cheese. You ever had government cheese?
Yeah, that's the best I ever ate.
Where did they get that cheese from? Oh,
they don't have it now.
They don't have it now. But what Reagan did, Nancy was the president for 8 years, okay? Because her husband was sick. He had dementia. And all the pictures that you see of Reagan, when he was when he was governor of California, and when he was president for 8 years in this country, Nancy Reagan orchestrated every photo that came out of the White House with regards to Ronald Reagan. She was the power behind the throne. She was the one who suggested cutting these social programs to the core, which he did. He called her mommy.
I didn't know it.
I read this entire biography because Nancy Reagan would not allow, if you made an enemy of this woman, you were going to pay dearly. Because this woman did not play. Very powerful woman. I admire her today, Nancy Reagan. She changed policy for poor people so deeply that we'll never recover. Maybe 50 years from now, and I'm talking about the 80s, maybe in 2080, 100 years from now. But this woman was extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. The Unauthorized Biography by Kitty Kelly is a controversial an unauthorized look at the life of former First Lady Nancy Reagan. Now, Kelly is known for her investigative journalism and unauthorized biographies, delves into the personal and public life of Nancy Reagan, revealing a complex and often unflattering portrait. I'm not going to go into her dirt, but I'm just saying all of this stuff to say this. We got to read. We got to take our children to the library. We got to get them library cards. We got to go into these libraries as a family. We have to stop buying $200 shoes. What's that religious jeans called?
True Religion.
True Religion jeans, and putting it on our children's behinds, and they can't read and write. We're going to have to do better, black folks. We're going to have to do better. This is the great black Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves was one of the deputy sheriffs that settled the West. Most black folks don't even know about this guy, Bass Reeves. Black Gun Silver Star is a fascinating biography that chronicles the life of Bass Reeves, one of the most remarkable lawmen of the American West. Reeves, an African American, was born into slavery, rose to become a legendary deputy U.S. Marshal in the 19th century. The author's meticulous research uncovers the truth behind the myths, the legends surrounding Reeves. This cat was phenomenal. Couldn't read and write. But when he had a bounty poster, when he had a wanted poster, he would memorize the face. And when they read it to him, he would memorize everything that was on that poster that he needed to know. We gotta get books in the hands of our children. Stop buying this trash for kids. Our children are suffering. Our children are born with the genius in our minds. I'm an old drunk, an old woman, and an old dope fiend. But by the grace of God, I am doing a lot of things to help our children.
Amen.
This is an outstanding piece of work here. The gentleman who wrote this book. Can you tell him about your book?
I would let.
Can I move and let him talk?
No, I would rather you continue. This is your spotlight.
You read it. I want to see what you think about it.
I read this book twice, and what jumped out at me and shook me up in terms of pain is the trauma that this man went through as a little child. People who were supposed to be there to protect, to love, to care. Some of them were there, but most of them weren't. This man, as a child, went through holy hell. And now what he's doing is making a difference in the lives of children, talking to people to stay out of jail. Stay away from the jails.
Please.
He says there's nothing in the jail. He said jails are nasty, prisons are nasty. Yeah. There's nothing good in there. You don't want to go. Even if they got all the cable you want. Even if they got they're acknowledging your rights. You don't want to be locked up in a cage like an animal. This man's story. Get the book.
Appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, because one of your degrees kind of, you know the system, the penal system.
I know of it.
You know of it, I'm sorry.
Yes, I don't know it.
You studied it.
I know policy.
Okay.
When it comes to that, yes.
What's important about the policies that most of us wouldn't know that keeps us tied to the criminal system once we get involved?
Well, first of all, there's no way that the black individuals in this country are going to be able to get away from the penal system, because the penal system was built for us. If you're familiar with Black Reconstruction And W.E. Du Bois, he wrote the definitive book on Black Reconstruction. And when we had 1863 and the freeing of over 4.5 million slaves, allegedly freeing, all that many weren't freed. However, when these slaves were let go because of the Lincoln situation, because of the Emancipation Proclamation, they would go searching for loved ones who'd been sold. Okay, on foot. They would look for their children, look for their mothers, look for their grandmothers, loved ones. Okay? The South did not want that. And so what they did was they came up with poor whites to police the blacks in the South. And this policing led to the building of jails. This policing led to convict labor. This policing led to all forms of abuse, because during active slavery, the master on the plantation dictated the punishment. Okay? But now we've taken the punishment from the individual who owns the slaves and who owns the plantation and put it in the hands of the government. We are still psychological slaves, even though we walk around here acting like we got it going on.
Right.
But we give Asians billions of dollars every year because we don't like this nappy hair. We give cosmetics companies billions of dollars every year because we don't like this dark skin. We give everybody money to make us feel less than. I want to get rid of feeling like a nigga. I don't like feeling like a nigga. I feel like a nigga. I feel like a bald head, nappy head, big lip nigga. I don't want to feel like a nigga. Let me get the weave in my hair. I still feel like a nigga. Let me go get me some cream that'll make my skin lighter. Still feel like a nigga, because niggerism is built into the culture. We ain't gonna never get around feeling like niggas,
Right.
as they say, or as we like to call ourselves. You know,
It's so powerful. Even white women are getting stuff put in their lips and surgeries.
yes, exactly. But guess what? When they get the treatments to make them more sexual,
The enhancements.
yes, enhancements, they're not going around no black woman saying, oh, yes, I think you beautiful because you got a big old butt or you got those big old lips. They wouldn't dare come to a black woman and say, oh my God, the reason why I got my butt done or my lips done or this or that is because in my heart and soul, I think you're so pretty, which they do.
They're not going to say it.
You're not going to say it? No, never. But history, going back to the history on the plantation, because the white female was so upset with her white husband going down to the shacks and doing his thing, that she was the main abuser of black children. Joy DeGruy, look her up, check her out. Did a lot of research on this. Another thing that black folks need to understand is that when we were in chattel slavery, you, as a black man, could not go to master and ask master for a chicken bone or a chicken leg or a rag or whatever it was you needed to go to master for. Mama had to go. The female had to go.
And she had to give up something for it.
Sometimes. But basically what she had to do was assuage his ego. Because he to this day, he's afraid of your penis. To this day. And as long as that fear of you being a better man and more manly than he is, the jails are going to continue to grow.
Right.
Who runs the jails?
Yeah.
Who runs the jails?
White people. I agree.
Who get the best jobs in the jails?
White people. I agree. That's what we talked about too. That's why I broke all that stuff up. When I went to prison, they had a land where all whites eat on this, all blacks eat her, blacks sit in the back. I broke that color land. I said, "Man, I'm gonna eat what I want. I'll fight whoever." And I did it. I stopped it. I did it. But people don't know it. I did it. I broke through that.
We are going to have to, okay, Black Gangsters of Chicago. This is an excellent book because a lot of these criminal gangsters did tremendous things for the neighborhood, especially when it came to running numbers, when it came to policy. Those numbers and that policy built schools, funeral homes, started banks, built cemeteries, graveyards, entertainment, artists, you name it. Policy and numbers, they call them nigger pennies.
It's funny you said it because then they start the lottery and some of the money supposedly goes to the schools.
That's my book.
You got it.
That's one of them.
Now, this guy here, A.G. Gaston, is, he lives in Birmingham. He lived in Birmingham. And he picked himself up by his bootstraps and became one of the richest black men in this country. Most people don't even know his name. He still has a construction company down there in Birmingham, Alabama. A.G. Gaston. That reading list that I gave you, I hope you will share it because I cannot overemphasize, folks.
That's my answer.
You
gave me 2 books.
I gave you 2. Yes, sir.
You got notes in there? You know?
I'll take that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tuskegee Airmen. We need pilots. We need professors. We need attorneys. We need entrepreneurs. We need psychologists. We need psychiatrists. Our people need everything. Right now, the medical profession is controlled or will be controlled by Hindus. Everywhere I go in terms of medical and medical care, there's a Hindu looking out for me, taking care of me. Black folks, we got to wake up. We got to stop hiding behind nonsense. And forgive me, yes, I hid behind nonsense for 20 years. And this is why I work so hard today to try to help people. Because I did not know I was lost and looking. I did not know it. But now that I know it, I have a responsibility to help others. And that's why I'm here now, sharing the truth to the best of my understanding. As I grow, I'll be able to share more truth. I'm going to ask you to pray for me because I need prayer. And I'm going to ask you to send money to this nonprofit called EGAR. You want to know more? Take down my phone number. Take down that email. Take down that Cash App. And call me and talk with me. And I'll share with you what we're doing in the neighborhood to help reading, to help writing. We just produced 2 major plays in Columbus on my dime, where people, adults and children who are struggling with reading and writing, we wrote about John the Baptist and put on this fabulous play at 2 venues. And we need help. And you know what? We're going to get help because I have faith that everything is going to work out for us as a people. But we have got to do better.
When will your YouTube channel be up and running?
Didn't you give me a week?
I gave you a week. I want you to let everybody else know.
Oh, okay. Well, Big Lee said it needs to be up in a week, and I have been working on it. And Dr. Q's technological skills are improving, but I'm getting ready to get a professional to help me get this up and ready for you to come and enjoy.
Do you have the name yet?
It's called Dr. Q and Hustler's Inspiration.
That's right.
Dr. Q and Hustler's Inspiration.
Beautiful name.
That's what you said. Thank you.
I like to ask you a question.
Fleece has another question.
Yes, sir.
In your play dealing with John the Baptist, how far did you go in your play? Did you go to the beheading of John?
Mm-hmm. We bust his head. We take it off.
Who did y'all put the stripper in there?
The dancer?
Yeah.
Yeah, his stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the dance in there.
That's good.
We got Herod in there. We've got the whole life of John from the time he was a little boy until he is beheaded. Mm-hmm. And then we've got a fake
all
head.
over dude wanted to have his brother fight.
That's right.
And John spoke against it.
That John spoke against it because in Jewish religion, if the husband of the brother is still alive, you're not supposed to marry that woman until that husband dies. And what Herodias and Herod did, they married while Philip, who was Herod's brother, was still alive. Mm-hmm. Now you know there were two Herods. There was Herod the king, and then Herod, who had John beheaded, was the son of Herod the king, who tried to find Jesus.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. There were several Herods. There were about 10 of them. And so we had Herod, the son, and then we had another Herod. So there was about 10 Herods. Mm-hmm. But we had Herod the king, you know, the 3 wise men, and I got to get this child because it's been prophesied that this child is going to dethrone me. Okay, going to take over. And so he sent the soldiers out, you know, kill every infant under 2. And but his son was the one who beheaded John the Baptist, whose name was also Herod.
And make sure y'all please follow her on her new channel. That'll be up in a week. And she has a whole lot of knowledge, man. We didn't cover a portion of it. I've talked to her for hours before we even did this, and I didn't even hear the same thing twice. So make sure y'all have on y'all channels. Invite her out.
Give me some business.
Yes.
Bring me to you so that I can get money for my nonprofit and I can sell these books and I can make an impact in the lives of more people.
What's the name of your book?
All right. This is Dr. Q's book. It is called Let the Fun Begin. And let the fun begin exposing the disease of addiction and its accompanying demons. And that beautiful girl right there, no, it's not me. However, she symbolized being cleansed. Fleece used to talk about, I heard him talk about when you get into the penitentiary first, they strip you naked.
Yes, they do.
They make you cough to make sure you're not holding anything in areas where it shouldn't be held. So they want you to be clean. Don't bring in nothing that shouldn't be in there. This picture symbolizes cleansing the spirit, not hiding anything, not holding anything back. Because if a person is to heal from addiction and the hellhole of addiction and alcoholism, they must tell the truth on him or herself. Lies give strength to the disease.
Yeah, it does.
And thank you for being with us today, Dr. Q.
For real.
Bye for now.
You love it, though. I want you to look at it like I looked at it. I don't look at it like, here's how I look at it. My whole life now that I done picked up a little more knowledge is that the devil.